I've made a few Nine Realms videos on my channel before, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of some awesome stuff in the process, but I haven't ever really compared it to the movies properly. So with the help of my friend Mutant Cacti and the new release of Season 3, let's compare Hiccup and Toothless' relationship to Tom and Thunder's. And before we start, I'd like to preface by saying that I'm not hating on the writers because they're just doing their jobs, but more on why the show exists at all and DreamWorks as a whole. I really hope you enjoy. We'll be covering three main parts: the difference in setting and perceived danger between Hiccup and Tom's relationships, the difference in power and equality, and finally, the most major difference, which is their fear and defining character traits. These are the major differences I've found which really drive a wedge between the two in terms of narrative potential and power. So with that being said, let's start at the very beginning. The first problem with Tom and Thunder's relationship starts a mere few seconds into the first episode of the Nine Realms with the setting. Despite having built an incredibly interesting and unique setting, the fictional archipelago where dragons are natural and commonplace, DreamWorks decided with the Nine Realms to drop the universe they've been exploring since 2010 and move us 1300 years into the future to a place which strongly resembles our own world. Just by moving the show to modern times, DreamWorks eliminates 90% of anything interesting to do with dragons instantly. One of the consequences of the original setting was the inability of Vikings to do anything about dragons. Their species were evenly matched in many regards, and their constant battle was an eternal effort for humans to be stronger, better, and smarter to drive them off. So much of the narrative power of the first movie, so much of the emotion we get out of Hiccup and Toothless' bond, the villagers' hatred of dragons, and even Stoick's harshness on his son is rooted in the fact that we believe that these people are in conflict.
The entire story of How to Train Your Dragon 1 is built on our implicit understanding that dragons are a real and dangerous threat to humans. And that understanding is what creates this unique situation where Hiccup and Toothless' relationship exists despite a social force acting against it. For Tom and Thunder, that danger is not there. The interspecies conflict is not there. And there's nothing saying that there had to be an interspecies conflict to begin with, but at the very least there had to be a balance of power. As it is now, Tom and Thunder are not on even footing. Tom has complete power over Thunder, and Thunder has to rely on Tom to keep his existence a secret and not literally destroy his entire world. They're not equals. Thunder, by way of the interspecies dynamic that exists, partly as a result of this new modern setting, is almost like a pet that Tom can use. And if Tom decides to honor him and respect him and care for him and treat him like an equal, as it would seem like he does, it's because Tom is letting him be his equal. It's not real equality. Thunder has no power over Tom in the way Tom has power over him, and that comes down again to the setting and to the audience's expectations. And if you're thinking, no, Thunder could definitely hurt Tom, then my response is, no.
Clearly not.
Back at Berk, children were expected and told to kill. Kill dragons, kill vermin, whatever. This expectation and normalcy of death is illustrated at key moments in the movies with the Red Death, Valka's Bewilderbeast, and Stoick. Plus Grimmel and Drago, I guess. Hiccup decides to kill the Red Death and doesn't think much of it. It was causing harm and it was going to kill the people of Berk, so he just killed it first. This was normal in the time period he grew up in, and he was expected to be able to do so from when he was a younger age than Tom and his gang are now. Blood and gore don't have to be shown in the movies or in Race to the Edge because their deaths are felt in other ways. They influence the story and have long-lasting effects, and they blend in with the setting of the franchise at that point. We feel the stakes because the scriptwriters aren't afraid to show us the true danger these dragons impose, both in the deaths they cause and their own. This is further emphasized when we see how even dragon trappers react, along with the entirety of Berk in movie 1. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, we see every single character react with fear and violence to the dragons, and even our main character seems obsessed with killing them. The bit of narration at the start where Hiccup says,
"Killing a dragon is everything around here. Gronkles are tough. Taking down one of those would definitely get me a girlfriend,"
is an important part of the world building for the beginning of the movie. This is them defining the setting, making dragons feel dangerous, and making it seem normal that children his age would kill them, or would want to. They even make it clear that in this society, violence and danger are respected as positive characteristics, which is a part of what makes Hiccup's motivations in the first 30 minutes of the film so understandable.
In the Nine Realms, this destructive credibility is lost so quickly it's almost never there. Thunder has the potential to be feared and respected as the offspring of lightning and death that he is. The Dragon Book scene was very important in movie 1 to the sense of danger that DeBlois was building around Toothless specifically. And one might say he's even more of an offspring of lightning than Toothless is, but he very quickly falls short. In this bizarre future time we're in, death and injury are obviously not normal. Dragons are a secret, and the basic matter of survival is a mere afterthought now, where it was so clearly central in the movies, especially movie 1. The sense of danger that dragons used to have is gone. You could watch a character be entirely crushed by a rock the size of a house and expect them to get up and walk away with a quip on their tongue. There were two paths the Nine Realms could have gone down. Those being, enforcing the dangerous power dragons possess and having the kids fear them with long-lasting effects, maybe constructed around some important accident with long-lasting ramifications. And it wouldn't even have to be on the level of a lost limb. Tom's PTSD could work if it was utilized better in the show and influenced more choices. Or, the second and the easier option, which they took because the show doesn't have a proper story to get invested in, just let everything awe-inspiring about dragons that was built up in the How to Train Your Dragon movies just fade away into mist. Instead of a terrifying, dangerous version of Thunder who Tom fears and learns to respect as they grow alongside each other, as he should, we get an oversized, inbred gecko cow with about as much personality as his own fucking saddle.
In movie 1, Hiccup and Toothless were on equal footing. They had to be, otherwise one would have killed the other. Toothless is a danger to Hiccup because of his far superior physical traits, as all dragons are to humans, but Hiccup is far smarter than Toothless. This allows him to bring Toothless down. Toothless is at his mercy and Hiccup lets him go. Then Hiccup is at Toothless's mercy and Toothless lets him go. Toothless can't leave because the physical strength that gives him power over Hiccup has been compromised. He has to rely on Hiccup to regain that power. It's the same for Hiccup. He finds that Toothless gives him the ability to achieve things he has never done before, not just physically like flying, but also in other areas that Hiccup cares about, such as the ability to protect his people, a way to engage with the girl he likes, we all like, and eventually at some point the social capital he so dearly longs for. On a deeper level, Toothless gives Hiccup the freedom he doesn't know he's been looking for his whole life. All of this is why in movie 3, when Toothless gets his new tail and is no longer dependent on Hiccup for flight, Hiccup gets this talk from Astrid.
Toothless didn't give you that, Hiccup. He just made it
easier.
The conversation is Hiccup becoming independent of Toothless and literally flying on his own, overcoming Grimmer with both physical strength and intellect.
What's important about all this is that these two are, at different times, at each other's mercy, influencing each other, dependent on each other, and eventually brothers, or as close as a human and a dragon can be to being brothers. Never does an important shift in their dynamic occur only on one side. All three movies take great care to ensure that Toothless and Hiccup are developed and empowered in equal amounts, especially in relation to each other. Hell, even the scenes of them fake fighting each other while playing serve to show us that they are still equals. Their power dynamic is what gives their relationship meaning. Hiccup and Toothless need each other. Toothless has to trust Hiccup, and Hiccup has to trust Toothless, especially in movie 1, because Toothless is compromised and basically a fish in a barrel hiding on Berk, within what looks like a few minutes walk of an entire village of Vikings, and Hiccup is literally a twig that Toothless could snap, crack, or burn alive in seconds, but they need each other, so they have to trust each other. This trust is so vitally important to their relationship that it is involved in every single character arc to go through in the movies.
And in true form, the same trust has no reason to exist in the Nine Realms. At least, it isn't shown. Thunder doesn't need Tom, and Tom doesn't need Thunder. You might say that makes their relationship more genuine, but what it actually makes it is uninteresting, because there's no conflict. Any good story writer will tell you that relationships, interesting relationships, are built on conflict.
For Hiccup and Toothless, it's the fact that they are expected to kill each other. For Hiccup and Astrid, it's the fact that Astrid wants to beat Hiccup. Then she's supposed to be against him because he's on the dragon's side. And then in the later movies, they have different ideals for the responsibilities that Hiccup is being pushed into, and then the fact that she doesn't want to get married. Yet.
Thunder and Tom have absolutely no conflict. The closest thing I can think of is when Tom doesn't want to eat the fish nuggets, and that's overcome by Tom deciding to sacrifice his taste buds for Thunder's happiness. If you've watched any of my previous videos, or even some of Audrey's videos about this, you'll notice that we always say that this was not earned, because the only conflict being resolved here is fish nuggets? So they have this big important event that's signposted as a significant and meaningful moment, but just isn't. It's like they built a tower with dust bunnies and then poured gold down the sides, and they don't deserve anything that beautiful for their tower of structural nothingness. And then Tom and Thunder's relationship is never expanded upon. They're just best friends now, and there's never any conflict between them.
At least in Race to the Edge and the movies, they were constantly testing Hiccup and Toothless's relationship, especially in movie 2 when Hiccup brought Toothless out of the Alpha's control, which is a prime example of a significant moment with a powerful musically signposted payoff that was earned. That's why you watch this and you care.
Boy, that's it! I'm here!
But this clip just makes you wonder why on earth you would care. The scene Toothless found has conflict on conflict on conflict.
This is Toothless literally killing Hiccup's dad, even though it's not his fault, and Hiccup pushing him away in a reflexive reaction to the natural shock, denial, and fear that comes with the very early stages of grief, even though he knows it's not his fault. It's a character behaving irrationally and against their best interests for an understandable and well-developed reason. Actually, it's both characters doing that, which perfectly leads to a conflict we deeply care about. This is heartbreaking, but it's what you have to do to earn your resolutions, and the Nine Realms has not done that.
A friend.
And it's not even that their relationship couldn't have been developed in the first place. With Hiccup, the major difference between them was their sides in the war between humans and dragons. For Tom and Thunder, the thing that would most easily throw a wrench between the two is the fact that neither of them knew about the existence of the other species. This was the point where you could have turned around and introduced some conflict. Tom doesn't know very much about Thunder, if at all. He must have been scared meeting him, or at least he should have been. It would not have been difficult to develop a story in which Tom doesn't immediately decide to go feed the dragon, and instead reacts like a normal human being by staying away. Something would have to force them together, because their natural characters should be pulling them apart.
Instead of making conflict between Tom and Thunder to develop their bond in an interesting way, they decided to make Tom's character do exactly what would avoid an interesting story. Tom not having the self-preservation gene is fine and all, not really, but it just destroys the ideal of danger that dragons were literally created to embody. You know what happens when you're a dumbass who throws yourself into an exhibit with polar bears? A polar bear fucking mauls you. When you wake a sleeping razor whip, you get sheared across the torso, cut in half. If you want to make your characters throw themselves into open flames, you're kind of expected to let them burn. And when you give a character the attribute of being off the fucking wackadoo insane and liable to get themselves killed at any moment, there has to be some kind of recompense or struggle with that.
When it comes to characters like Hiccup and Tom, their sort of outcast status and their major conflict against society should lie inherently in their most fundamental characteristics. Hiccup is a little bit weird. He wouldn't kill a dragon, and naturally, since that's the character trait we're focusing on, that's the main idea he represents thematically in the story. That character trait is the one that's going to be experiencing the conflict. That's the part of him people are going to have an issue with. Actually, for Hiccup it was kinda everything about him, but for the purposes of the narrative, that was the main thing that set his actions and beliefs apart. For Tom, his core characteristic is clearly his inability to experience what some of us might politely term as a basic survival instinct. The fact that this characteristic does not experience strong and continuous conflict within every one of Tom's arcs and every relationship he has, narratively, is what makes him so uncompelling. They do mention that this attribute is frowned upon by the authorities in his life, but this is a conflict that never develops or changes. He's an almost entirely static character for whom any caution would seem more like a lapsing character than development. And that's strongly reflected in his almost non-existent relationship with Thunder and the rest of the kids.
Maybe they could have spent some time building a character arc where Tom and the rest of the group would learn to be more careful about navigating this new world, and develop the conflict that would force the humans to trust the dragons with their lives, and then maybe the dragons are impeded in some way, or their natural lives are harmed by the existence of Project Icarus, forcing them to trust the children.
We're still miles away from the level of love and trust Hiccup and Toothless had in the movies. The only thing we can hope for is that the development between Tom and Thunder comes sooner rather than later. I really hope you enjoyed. It means a lot to me that you watched to the end. The next video will probably be on the Nine Realms game that just came out, although it does kind of depend on how long it takes to play through it. If you enjoyed, please do consider leaving a like or subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.